नमस्कार। स्वागत है आपका आपके चैनल पर, आपके प्लेटफॉर्म पर। यू आर वेलकम। टुडे आई एम गोइंग टू डिस्कस विद यू द लास्ट chapter of neoclassical criticism. When neoclassical starts, neoclassical period, why is it called neoclassical? It was a classical period, that is for sure. And what is the meaning of neo? Neo का मतलब क्या होता है? Neo means classicism in a new way. The classical scholars were Greek scholars and Latin scholars. लैटिन और ग्रीक के स्कॉलर्स को क्लासिकल स्कॉलर्स कहा जाता है। न्यू क्लासिकल मीन्स न्यू क्लासिकल स्कॉलर्स फॉलोड द वेज दैट वर सजेस्टेड बाय ईदर ग्रीस और लैटिन। यही हुआ न्यू क्लासिकल का मतलब। बट व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट इंग्लिश न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म, दे वर मोर इंस्पायर्ड बाय लैटिन राइटर्स, लैटिन क्रिटिक्स इन कंपैरिजन टू द Greeks. And in neoclassicism mein we have discussed John Dryden and we have discussed Dr. Samuel Johnson, the first and the last critic of the neoclassical period. This neoclassical period is divided into three different periods. Restoration period, that is also known as age of Dryden. Second period is age of Pope, and the third period is age of Dr. Johnson or the age of sensibility. An entire 18th century is known as the age of prose and reason. And who described 18th century as the age of prose and reason? Prose and reason कहा जाता है 18th century को, and there was a critic who called the 18th century as indispensable 18th century. Right? Milton was the prominent poet of the first 2 decades of the neoclassical period. Milton wrote his Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, Samson Agonists in Restoration period when King Charles II came to the throne. Monarchy was established, theatres were restored. Then Milton published his Paradise Lost first, then Paradise Regained along with Samson Agonists. Milton was also a critic, a little bit, not more. He had written prefaces to Paradise Lost and Samson Agonists. And his prefaces to these 2 works, Paradise Lost and Samson Agonists, were but brief explanatory notes, right? And here in the preface to Paradise Lost, he had defended unrhymed verses. He had defended blank verse, use of blank verse को उन्होंने डिफेंड किया था. As you know that 18th century neoclassical period का जो फेवरेट meter है, that is iambic pentameter and heroic couplet. Blank verse is also written in iambic pentameter, but they are unrhyming lines, and it is said that they are very close to our natural tongue, and blank verse is close to our natural tongue, and heroic couplet is artificial. It is not natural, it is unnatural. And before Milton, Shakespeare had used blank verse extensively in his plays. Milton also adopted that blank verse for his magnum opus poem Paradise Lost. By contrast, there was another critic who is said to be the illegitimate son of William Shakespeare, and I hope you know the name of illegitimate son of William Shakespeare. He was called Sir William Davenant. William Davenant was the playwright who had got his play performed during the interregnum, during the Commonwealth period when theatres were suspended. उनका एक प्ले था द सीज ऑफ द रोड्स एंड इट वाज परफॉर्म्ड, राइट. विलियम डेवनेंट वाज वन ऑफ द रॉयलिस्ट्स and along with Charles II he fled France during the time of Commonwealth government or after the assassination of King Charles I. डेवनेंट भी वहां पर चले गए थे and he wrote a poem called Gondibert. William Devanant wrote a poem Gondibert, and for this Gondibert he wrote a preface, and the name of the preface was called Heroic Poem, right. The name of the preface was called Heroic Poem. And in this heroic poem, what is a heroic poem? Heroic poem is also known as epic poem. Heroic poem is also known as epic poem, and you know that epic is the long narrative poem. It deals with godlike characters, it deals with the entire nation or entire tribe, entire community, and above all epic poem is war poem, right. होमर की poems Iliad and Odyssey, Virgil की poem Aeneid, Spenser की The Fairy Queen, right. These poems were epic poems, and here he started writing in defense of the heroic poem. All right, क्लियर हो रहा है ना बिल्कुल मामला. अभी विदाउट कंटेंट है, अभी कंटेंट पर भी आता हूं. इट वॉज अ पोएम ऑफ अबाउट 1700 quatrains. 1700 quatrains means quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines, and 1700 quatrain means around 6400 lines were there in the poem Gondibert. So it was obviously a long narrative poem, right. एक long narrative poem थी, and it was written in highly mannered style. Highly mannered style means it was not written in natural way, right. In natural style, instead it was written in highly mannered style. All right. Devanant begins his preface with a brief survey of heroic poets from Homer to Spenser. Right, Homer was a heroic poet as he wrote heroic poems, Iliad and Odyssey, and Spenser was also a heroic poet because he had written an epic under the title The Fairy Queen. So the preface starts with the survey. It means the preface itself is a history of poetry, not only English poetry but history of entire poetry, as it starts surveying from the time of the great Homer, right. And Spenser gets his due praise, except his archaism and of a stanza requiring excessive rhyming is censored. Two things of Spenser were censored, were criticized by William Devanant. First, his medieval words, his ancient words that were no longer popular during the time of Mr. Spenser, and second one, his excessive rhyming was censored. What is his excessive rhyming? Edmund Spenser had invented a particular stanza form that is called Spenserian stanza, and Spenserian stanza consists of 9 lines, and out of 9 lines, 8 lines of the beginning are written in iambic pentameter, and the final line, last line, is written in iambic hexameter. So you have to pay very much attention when you write such a typical complicated stanza pattern according to William Devanant, and that's why William Devanant was highly critical of Spenser's two things: number one, his excessive rhyming, and number two, his archaism, his medieval words, his ancient words that he had inculcated, that he had put in his epic. और इन्होंने किया क्या था, these words, these styles जो है उसको बहुत complicated mannered poem बना दी थी, right. Mayor Devanant then lists his own prerequisites for a successful epic poem. How to write a successful epic poem, and for this William Devanant suggests few formulas. और few formulas में क्या कहते हैं, पहली बात तो यही है, starting from the time of Plato, कि poetry is imitation. Then here Mr. Devanant says that mere imitation is no guide because it forestalls originality and prevents us from improving on our predecessors. His character will be Christian person. Character will be, I quote, Christian persons, because the principles of our religion conduce more to explicable virtue, to plain demonstrative justice, and even to honor rather than or any other than religion. The story will be placed in the former age than the present. Where should be the poem set? Then he says, poem should be set in the classical time, the older time, in the ancient time, not in the present time. For enough removed, in fact, to free the poet from the shackles of the हिस्टोरियन के शैकल से वो मुक्त हो जाए, इसलिए उसकी जो पोएम की सेटिंग होगी इट विल बी फार अवे फ्रॉम द प्लेस. फॉरेन सेटिंग की बात करता है. ही हैज चोजन फॉरेन सेटिंग फॉर हिज एपिक एंड he has chosen foreign setting also as being more to the taste of reading public, and his characters are schooled in courts and military camps. कैसे characters होने चाहिए? Like Aeschylus, not Aeschylus, sorry, like Agamemnon, right? Agamemnon type character होने चाहिए, Odysseus type character होने चाहिए, Paris type character होने चाहिए, Hercules type character होने चाहिए. They provide pattern of such as will be fit to be imitated by men of blood, education, and magnanimity. As for evil characters, they will show the distempers of love and ambition in action. So here one thing I want to emphasize again, that Davenant was in favor of Christian characters, right? He was in favor of Christian characters, and his characters were schooled in courts, schooled in principles, right? फिर Davenant proceed करते हैं to defend the form of heroic poem. According to Davenant, a heroic poem must be written in, किसमें लिखी जानी चाहिए? A heroic poem must be written in 5 books. Before William Davenant, epics were written generally in 12 books, right? But he advocates that an epic poem should be in 5 books, which is closely modeled on the 5 acts of drama. And to defend his interwoven famous quatrains on the ground that they are pleasing to the ear. इसलिए उन्होंने क्वाट्रेन लिखा है because they were pleasing to the ear, right? अब number 1 heroic Christian characters, number 2 foreign setting, number 3 पर बात करते हैं epic must be written in 5 books modeled on a drama, and then he defends his iambic quatrain on the grounds that they are pleasing to the ear. And finally, he turns from outer frame and furniture to the essential material of which a work is made. And किससे वर्क बनता है? According to Davenant, that is wit. Wit is a very important term for all the neoclassical writers. Everybody writes about wit. Everybody has focused on wit, and everybody has given his own definition of wit. Later in this lecture you will see Edition's definition of wit, his true wit, false wit, and then he advocates for the mixed wit, right? ये सब अभी आपकी क्लास में आएगा. ये wit है जिसको वो internal feature कहते हैं. Wit not just luck and labor but also the dexterity of thought, motion, rounding the world like the sun with unimaginable motion, and bringing swiftly home to the memory universal service. It is the soul's powder. It can burst through all bonds and shed light on all dark places, and it emanates from God, right? It emanates from God. What? Wit emanates from God. And that's why he preferred use of wit in his poem. So this was William Davenant's approach in the defense of heroic poem. I think every point आपको क्लियर हो गया होगा. कोई डाउट हो, कोई क्वेरी हो, कोई क्वेश्चन हो, जरूर शेयर करिएगा, राइट? और विलियम डेवेनेंट इसके आगे कहां पर जाते हैं? he had dedicated, yeah, you could say he had addressed his poem Gandhi Bird to another poet, or he addressed the preface to Thomas Hobbes. Right? He had addressed the poem, the poem's preface to Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes was another critic and poet of the time. Davenant dated his preface from Paris, where a number of English royalists had sought shelter, had sought refuge. Among them was the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, to whom Davenant's preface was addressed. When Gandhi Bird was published in England, there was prefixed to it, और अब जब इंग्लैंड में छपती है तब ना, it was not only preceded by a preface written by William Davenant, but also it has an answer to it, and the answer was given by Hobbes, जिसको उन्होंने एड्रेस किया था. No doubt French influence contributed to this outburst of theorizing. There was lively critical controversy in France in the 1630s, thereafter from a generation of critics who predated Boileau. A dominant figure among them was classicist John Chaplin. खैर इस सबकी हमको बात नहीं करना है, थॉमस हॉब्स के बारे में कुछ बताते हैं जो उन्होंने लिखा है. थॉमस हॉब्स का क्या ओपिनियन था? थॉमस हॉब्स थॉट so highly of Gandhi Bird as to give Davenant a place beside होमर एंड वर्जिल. इतना इम्प्रेस्ड थे कि उन्होंने विलियम डेवनेंट को वर्जिल और होमर के पैरेलल ला करके खड़ा कर दिया. ये एक्सेसिव फ्लैटरिंग थी. मेरे हिसाब से विलियम डेवनेंट एग्जिस्ट नोवेयर एंड देयर इज नो कंपैरिजन एट ऑल बिटवीन William Davenant and Homer or Virgil. Homer and Virgil are son and William Davenant is not a star. Right? तो उनसे कंपेयर करके उनको सबसे ऊपर बैठा दिया था. राइट? ये क्या काम किया था? ये काम किया था हॉब्स ने. और हॉब्स ने इतना ही नहीं, he equates three kinds of poetry. 3 टाइप ऑफ पोएट्री की भी वो बात कर रहे थे, और वो 3 टाइप ऑफ पोएट्री जो बताए थे वो कहते एक तो हीरोइक मींस हीरोइक पोएम, एंड दूसरा स्कीमेटिक मींस सटायर, एंड थर्ड वन वाज द पास्टोरल पोएम. दीज 3 काइंड्स वर divided or told by Thomas Hobbes with the 3 regions of mankind. Heroic poems come from the court, schematic come from the city, and pastoral poems are set in the countryside. And the 3 labels of the humanity, the lustrous nobility, the moody, unreliable city dwellers, and the plain, dull, yet not unwholesome. Plain, dull, अनहोलसम, ये कैरेक्टरिस्टिक किसकी है? पास्टोरल की. सिटी डोलर्स जो है ये कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है स्कीमेटिक की, एंड जो फर्स्ट वन है लस्टरस नोबिलिटी, ये है हीरोइक की. राइट? सिंस ईच ऑफ दीज काइंड्स ऑफ लिटरेचर कैन बी सब डिवाइडेड इनटू डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स, इनको अलग अलग ग्रुप्स में सब डिवाइडेड फिर से किया जा सकता है अकॉर्डिंग टू वेदर इट इज नैरेटिव और ड्रामेटिक. इन प्रेजेंटेशन we are left with 6 kinds of poetry, और जो 6 kinds of poetry है epic and tragedy, satire and comedy, pastoral and pastoral comedy. If it is in narrative form then it will be epic. If it is in dramatic form तो क्या होगी tragedy. If it is in narrative form तब क्या होगा? तो होगा satire. If it is in dramatic form तो क्या होगा? comedy. If it is in narrative form तो होगा pastoral, और if it is in dramatic form तो क्या होगा पास्टोरल कॉमेडी. ये 6 पार्ट्स में किसने बांट दिया था? 6 पार्ट में बांट दिया था विलियम डेवनेंट के अकॉर्डिंग. व्हाट इज मोस्ट इंटरेस्टिंग इन हॉब्स पीस इज हिज समरी ऑफ द क्रिएटिव प्रोसेस. और समरी ऑफ द क्रिएटिव प्रोसेस में क्या बताता है कि टाइम एंड एजुकेशन बिगेट्स एक्सपीरियंस. एक्सपीरियंस कहां से आता है? 2 things. Time and education begets experience. And experience से क्या मिलता है? Experience begets memory. Memory से क्या मिलता है? Memory begets judgment. और judgment से क्या मिलता है? Memory begets 2 things. Judgment and fancy. and judgment begets strength and structure, and fancy begets the ornaments of poem. Judgment is severer than her sister Fancy. Judgment soberly and statistically seeks out the appropriate material, and then Fancy swiftly orders and enriches it in copious imagery. राइट, तो ये सब जो है टॉमस हॉब्स के स्टेटमेंट्स थे, राइट, पोएट्री, हीरोइक पोएट्री और उसके आंसर पर. ऑल राइट, फर्स्ट वन. एंड ये सब कब लिखा गया था? बिफोर इवन द रेस्टोरेशन ऑफ इंग्लैंड. जब इंग्लैंड का रेस्टोरेशन होता है देन आते हैं जॉन ड्राइडन. एंड इन माय प्रीवियस क्लास, प्रीवियस के भी प्रीवियस में आई हैड डिस्कस्ड जॉन ड्राइडन एज अ क्रिटिक. एंड देन आफ्टर ड्यूरिंग, क्या कह लीजिए कि व्हेन द रेस्टोरेशन पीरियड वाज एंडिंग, एक पैम्फलेटियर, एक क्लर्जी आता है एंड हिज नेम वाज जर्मी कॉलियर. एंड जर्मी कॉलियर रोट an anti-theatrical pamphlet, and that anti-theatrical pamphlet was named Short View of the Immorality and Profaneness of English Stage. Short View of Immorality and Profaneness of the English Stage. Profaneness का मतलब होता है blasphemy, right? According to Jeremy Collier, इंग्लिश प्लेज, इंग्लिश स्टेज क्या काम कर रहे थे? दे वर स्प्रेडिंग ब्लास्फेमी, दे वर स्प्रेडिंग immorality, and the sole purpose of literature, sole purpose of drama was to be moral, was to teach morality. And the romantic restoration comedies, also known as artificial comedies or comedy of manners, they were not up to the mark as far as morality is concerned. They were spreading sexuality. They were written in abusive language. They were not up to the mark for common man. और इसलिए Mr. Jeremy Collier wrote the anti-theatrical pamphlet Short View of the Immorality and Profaneness of the English Stage. One of the very most important questions में से है. And through this essay, he attacked all the prominent playwrights of the time, including William Wycherley, John Dryden, William Congreve, John Vanbrugh, and Thomas D'Urfey. This question has been asked many times. Who wrote the essay Short View of the Immorality and Profaneness of the English Stage? And 2 times ये भी पूछा गया है कि which of the following members was not attacked by Jeremy Collier? William Wycherley, John Dryden, William Congreve, Thomas D'Urfey, and John Vanbrugh. These were the targeted dramatists. और क्या accusation किया था? He accuses the playwrights of profanity, blasphemy, indecency, and the undermining public morality through the sympathetic depiction of vice. He was a clergy, he was a churchman, और churchman होने के नाते it was his duty to preserve morality. और इसी morality के आधार पर इन्होंने इस पैम्फलेट को लिखा था. ये 2 restoration period was closing और कॉमेडी ऑफ मैनर्स का जीवन भी बीत चुका था, वो भी लगभग डिक्लाइन पर ही जा चुकी थी. और इम्पैक्ट भी ये हुआ इसका कि पीपल स्टॉप्ड राइटिंग सच प्ले, 2 पहले ही वो स्टॉप्ड हो चुके थे. एक दूसरा जो इम्पैक्ट हुआ ये हुआ कि आफ्टर जर्मी कॉलियर अ वॉर ऑफ पैम्फलेट्स स्टार्ट. एक टाइप का वॉर शुरू हो गया और जिसको इन्होंने अटैक किया था दे स्टार्टेड अटैकिंग द क्लर्जी मैन. एक ने तो ये कहा कि आवर प्लेज द कॉमेडी ऑफ मैनर्स जो है दे वर टारगेटिंग क्लर्जी, दैट्स व्हाई ही वाज angry and he wrote the essay. In 1698 the essay was published. In 1698 John Dennis wrote a pamphlet entitled The Usefulness of the Stage. Right? What was the title? The Usefulness of the Stage. John Vanbrugh wrote a jestful retort, a short vindication of the relapse and the provoked wife from immorality and profaneness. Right, these two plays were highly attacked by Jeremy Collier, the relapse and the provoked wife. और इसके लिए vindication लिखा किसने? जॉन वैनब्रो ने. Being a candidate of UGC NET, you have to remember the names of the pamphlets as well as the writers and the targets, the attackers and the attacked. दोनों का नाम आपको याद रखना है. John Dennis wrote a pamphlet, The Usefulness of the Stage. John Vanbrugh wrote a jestful retort, a short vindication of the relapse and provoked wife from immorality and profaneness. What did he say here? He said that we are not spreading immorality at all. इसको उन्होंने justify किया था, right? Other playwright like Thomas Durfee preferred to give their reply on the stage. Thomas Durfee also wrote a reply, and his reply was not in the form of a pamphlet, but his reply was in the form of the stage. He wrote Campaigners. That is a play. He wrote Campaigners, comments on Collier's strictures. Right? Who wrote the play Campaigners? Answer is Thomas Durfee. And what was the occasion? Occasion was Thomas Durfee was highly criticized by Jeremy Collier in 1698. And the third one was written by William Congreve. William Congreve took the attacks on his plays quite seriously and refuted Collier's allegation in his amendments of Mr. Collier's false and imperfect citations. Though William Congreve was one of the greatest comedy of manners writer, greatest comedy of manner playwrights, he wrote a vindication, he wrote amendments of Mr. Collier's false and imperfect citations, and then finally Collier ने अपना अटैक वापस ले लिया. Collier would later fire back with his defense of the short view in the following year in 1699. 1699 में उन्होंने अपना अटैक ही वापस ले लिया तो सारा मामला खत्म हो गया. मतलब कि एक टाइप से आप ये भी कह सकते हो कि टू गेट चीप पॉपुलैरिटी विलियम कॉन्ग्रीव रोट शॉर्ट व्यू ऑफ इमोरलिटी एंड ही वाज देन हाईली मेंशन्ड, हाईली साइटेड, हाईली क्रिटिसाइज्ड, राइट, एंड फाइनली ही वेंट बैक, वापस चले गए, अपना पोजीशन वापस ले लिया. इसको बोलते हैं अ पैम्फलेट वॉर. ऑलराइट, तो आफ्टर विलियम डेवनेंट हम कहां पर आए? सेकेंड पॉइंट पर आए, शॉर्ट व्यू ऑफ इमोरलिटी पर. अब हम नेक्स्ट पॉइंट पर आगे चल रहे हैं, नेक्स्ट एज पे चल रहे हैं, और अब हम बात करने वाले हैं अनदर क्रिटिक ऑफ द ईयर ऑफ द एज की, और उसका नाम है एडिशन. राइट, जोसेफ एडिशन. आप सब उसके नाम से बिल्कुल परिचित हो, फोटो भी आप देख सकते हैं और उसका नाम भी और उसकी स्पेलिंग भी. ADDISON. This is Joseph Addison. Joseph Addison was not a professional writer. Point number one, he was neither a poet nor a dramatist nor a critic, but he was everything. Right? Joseph Addison was basically a politician. He was basically a politician and he belonged to a political party, but he was an essayist as well, and he contributed to the spread of journals in the beginning of the 18th century. He wrote for the Spectators, he wrote for the Tattlers, and he was the co-founders, and he was colleague as well as schoolmate of Sir Richard Steele, the Irishman, और जो ये चाहता था कि लोग उसको आयरिश ना कह के इंग्लिश मैन कहा करें, और खुद के लिए कहता था कि आई एम एन इंग्लिश मैन बॉर्न इन आयरलैंड. ये रिचर्ड स्टील कहा करता था. जोसेफ एडिशन made a conscious effort to produce prescriptive essays laying down lines of guidance which might both clarify controversy and aid composition. He was not, however, a professional writer like John Dryden, but a man who pursued a political career as a Whig politician holding various posts. Writing was a sideline. Nevertheless, उनका एक प्ले था जिसका नाम था कैटो, one of the most celebrated dramas of the age, most celebrated dramas of the 18th century, and it was a tragedy, right? It was chiefly in articles of the Spectator between 1711 and 1714 that his criticism appeared. In all, about 50 articles, अराउंड 50 आर्टिकल्स उन्होंने लिखे जो कहीं ना कहीं से क्रिटिसिज्म से रिलेटेड है, एंड दे कैन बी डिवाइडेड इनटू 3 हेड्स. उनको 3 हेड्स में डिवाइड किया जाता है, और वो 3 हेड्स कौन कौन से हैं? देयर आर पेपर्स ऑन सेपरेट क्रिटिकल इश्यूज, सेकेंडली द पेपर्स ऑन पैराडाइज लॉस्ट, एंड थर्डली द पेपर्स ऑन द प्लेजर ऑफ इमेजिनेशन. राइट, प्लेजर ऑफ इमेजिनेशन. ये 3 हेड्स में मैंने उनको डिवाइड कर दिया है. वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट जो उनका पॉइंट है वो है क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ विट. राइट, ये पेपर्स ऑन ट्रू एंड फॉल्स विट फ्रॉम 58 to 62, पेपर्स ऑन ट्रेजेडी 39, 40, 42, 44, 45 published in the Spectator, and the series on Paradise Lost from 267 to 369, on papers on the pleasure of imagination 411 to 21. These are the numbers कहां से कहां तक पब्लिश हुए थे. All right. All right. What is wit? Wit was already defined by John Dryden. Wit was defined by Samuel Johnson. वो तो इनके बाद में आते हैं. And wit was also defined by Thomas Hobbes. Sorry, John Locke in his essay concerning human understanding. But the definitions given by these critics, these philosophers, were not up to the mark according to Mr. Joseph Addison. क्या कहा था जॉन ड्राइडन ने विट के बारे में? कि विट इज अ थिंग वेल सेड, अ ग्रेट थॉट ड्रेस्ड इन वर्ड्स, a great thought dressed in words so commonly received that it is understood by the meanest apprehensions. Right? क्या है विट? विट क्या है? विट एक ऐसी चीज है जहां पर आप चीजों को वेल सेड, बेहतर तरीके से एक्सप्रेस कर लेते हो. ये ड्राइडन का स्टेटमेंट था. ड्रेस्ड इन वर्ड्स सो कॉमनली, ग्रेट थॉट होनी चाहिए, वर्ड्स जो होनी चाहिए वो इतने सिंपल होनी चाहिए कि दे कुड बी अंडरस्टूड बाय द कॉमनेस्ट मैन, तो होगी वो विट. दिस वाज द डेफिनेशन ऑफ जॉन ड्राइडन, एंड एडिशन रिजेक्ट्स इट. एडिशन सेज that is the definition not of wit but of good writing in general. जिसकी बात वो कह रहे हैं कि great thoughts in simple words, this is the style of writing, this is not a wit. And then he comes to the definition of wit given by John Locke in his essay concerning human understanding. Nearer the truth. क्या बोलते हैं? What is the definition of wit according to John Locke? John Locke says that wit is the assemblage of ideas wherein can be found any resemblance or congruity to make up pleasant pictures and agreeable visions in the fancy, i.e. combining similar or congruous ideas to suggest new idea to the mind. ये wit के definition थी as was given by John Locke. wit क्या है? It is the assemblage of ideas. ideas का assemblage है wit, right? और इतना ही नहीं, it can be found any resemblance or congruity to make up pleasant pictures and agreeable vision. combining similar or congruous ideas to suggest a न्यू आइडिया टू द माइंड। माइंड के लिए एक न्यू आइडिया जहां से आए वो विट है, असेंबलेज ऑफ आइडियाज है, पिक्चराइजेशन है जिससे पिक्चर निकलकर आती है, वो है एग्रीएबल विजन इन द फैंसी। ये विट है अकॉर्डिंग टू whom? According to Mr. John Locke. And then he defines his own wit, right? True wit and false wit पर आते हैं। Every resemblance of ideas is not that which we call wit. हर ऐसी चीज जो resemblance की आइडिया है, every resemblance of ideas is not that which we call wit unless it be such and one that gives a delight and surprise. Wit तो वो है ना जो सरप्राइज दे, राइट? विट वो है जो डिलाइट दे और सरप्राइज भी, राइट? As true wit generally consists in this resemblance and congruity of ideas. राइट? कॉन्ग्रिग्यूटी ऑफ आइडिया एंड रिजेम्बलेंस दोनों जब सेम होंगे तो होगी ट्रू विट, राइट? अनलेस बी सच एंड वन दैट gives delight and surprise to the reader. These two properties seem essential to wit, more particularly the last of them. Right? Simple language में great thoughts को express कर देना ही wit नहीं है। Wit consists of surprise and delight, and surprise is even more important than delight. This was the statement. Right? In his papers on wit, Edison has a lot to say about various forms of false wit. He decries as false wit artifices such as those employed by George Herbert and others in shaping poems visually to represent a pair of wings or an egg. As true wit generally consists in this resemblance and congruity of ideas. And false wit क्या होता है? तो false wit is consists in the resemblance and congruity sometimes of single letters as in anagrams, chronograms, lipograms and acrostics. क्या कहते हैं कि जो false wit होती है, it doesn't have any idea but it consists of words, it consists of letters. Words और letters में false wit होती है, ना कि main ideas में। ideas जहां पर होंगे वो true wit होगा और जहां पर ideas नहीं होंगे वो क्या होगा? false wit होगा, राइट? resemblance of words false wit हो जाएगा और रिजेम्बलेंस ऑफ आइडियाज जो है वो ट्रू विट हो जाएगा। एक मोटी मोटी डेफिनेशन इसको आप समझ लीजिए फॉल्स विट और ट्रू विट की, राइट? फॉर जॉन लॉक के लिए विट क्या थी? उनके लिए तो विट बिल्कुल अलग ही था। जॉन लॉक के लिए विट लाइज चीफली इन द असेंबलेज ऑफ आइडियाज, राइट? For John Locke, wit lies chiefly in the assemblage of ideas and putting those together with quickness and variety wherein can be found any resemblance or congruity. Edison amends his definition. उसके थोड़ा सा चेंज लाते हैं। And the likeness brought to light by wit must not be obvious. It must delight and surprise. पहला काम करना चाहिए, ये सिंपल नहीं होनी चाहिए, ऑब्वियस नहीं होनी चाहिए, एंड इट मस्ट ब्रिंग डिलाइट एंड इट मस्ट ब्रिंग सरप्राइज टू द रीडर। दस व्हेन अ पोएट टेल्स अस, एक एग्जांपल देते हैं मिस्टर जोसेफ एडिशन कि सिंपली अगर कोई ये कहता है कि व्हेन अ पोएट टेल्स अस द बॉजम ऑफ हिज मिस्ट्रेस इज एज व्हाइट एज स्नो, तो कंपेयर तो कर दिया, रिजेंबल तो कर दिया, बट इट इज नॉट विट। यहां तो कोई विट ही नहीं हुई ना। विट कब होगी? विट तब होगी देयर इज नो विट इन द कंपैरिजन, जब वो एक और सेंटेंस ऐड कर दे और वो ये ऐड कर दे दैट इट इज एज कोल्ड टू। पहले तो क्या कहा कि माई जो बिलवेड है, राइट, उसकी बिलवेड जो उसकी मिस्ट्रेस है वो इतनी वाइट है जितनी कि स्नो। इतने से तो विट नहीं आएगी, विट कहने पे वो ये भी कह देना और उतनी कोल्ड भी है। तो जब कोल्ड कहेगी ना, मिस्ट्रेस इज सपोजली हॉट, और जब उसको कोल्ड कहेगा देन इट विल गिव सरप्राइज, और वो सो सरप्राइजिंग नेचर होगा, दैट विल बी विट। ऑलराइट, वो जो सरप्राइजिंग होगा दैट विल गिव यू डिलाइट, और उसको विट कहा जाएगा। ये मॉडिफिकेशन किसने किया है? ये मॉडिफिकेशन कर देते हैं भाई साहब जोसेफ एडिशन। ऑलराइट, विट कंप्राइजेस सरप्राइज, विट कंप्राइजेस डिलाइट, और विट कंप्राइजेस अ बिट मोर अपार्ट फ्रॉम रिजेम्बलेंस। सिंपल सा ना हो बल्कि वो थोड़ा एक स्टेप आगे चला जाए। और फॉर दिस ही गिव्स द एग्जांपल ऑफ अब्राहम कुली। अब्राहम कुली वाज वन ऑफ द मेटाफिजिकल पोएट्स, उसका एग्जांपल वो देते हैं, राइट। The resemblance must reside in the ideas, not in the words, letters or assonances. और अगर वो ideas में resemblance ना हो करके words, letters में होगी तो that will not be true wit, but that will be false wit. वो क्या हो जाएगी? वो false wit हो जाएगी। Alright, Coolidge cited as the rich proponent of the last. While Edition echoes Dryden in criticism of Coolidge, he rightly points to the inadequacy of Dryden's definition of wit. और Dryden की definition of wit क्या थी? I had told you earlier, right? अब क्या करते हैं वो? He comes to a third wit. True wit और false wit के बाद third wit पर आते हैं, और थर्ड विट को बोलते हैं वो कि वो मिक्स्ड विट होती है। मिक्स्ड विट क्या है? जहां पर दोनों इंक्लूड हो जाएं। कौन कौन से दोनों? रिजेम्बलेंस ऑफ आइडियाज और रिजेम्बलेंस ऑफ वर्ड्स। ये वो वर्ड्स हैं जिसको उन्होंने दिया हुआ है अपने डेफिनेशन में कि एनाग्राम नहीं हो सकता, एक्रोस्टिक नहीं हो सकता और पन नहीं हो सकता। ये फॉल्स विट होंगे, ये ट्रू विट नहीं होगी, राइट। फिर ट्रू विट मिक्स्ड विट पर आते हैं, और मिक्स्ड विट क्या है? पार्टली इन दी रिजेम्बलेंस ऑफ आइडियाज and partly in the resemblance of words. Resemblance of ideas and resemblance of words जब दोनों होंगे तब क्या होगा? तब होगी mixed wit, and mixed wit is preferable to Joseph Edition. यहां पर एग्जांपल दिया है, देखिए ये क्या दिया है जो आप सबके पास है। किसी के पास पूरा, किसी के पास आधा, किसी के पास जला हुआ, किसी के पास ठंडा पड़ा हुआ है, सबके पास। और ये क्या है? ये फायर है, आग है। आग से क्या समझते हैं आप? बड़े ऐसे वर्ड्स हैं, दिल जले टाइप। जलना दिल के साथ ही जुड़ा होता है। ये मिक्स्ड विट है जहां पर रिजेम्बलेंस भी है और सरप्राइज भी और डिलाइट भी। फायर इज जनरली एसोसिएटेड विद लव, राइट। फायर इज जैसे कहते हैं ना प्यार की आग में जलना, तो जो प्यार की आग में जलना है ना वो फायर इज एसोसिएटेड विद लव। ये एग्जाम्पल है मेरा नहीं, ये एग्जाम्पल जोसेफ एडिशन का ही है फॉर हिज मिक्स्ड विट। ऑलराइट, तो आफ्टर ट्रू विट, फॉल्स विट, मिक्स्ड विट, नाउ वी कम टू मिक्स्ड विट। देखिए एग्जांपल, ये फ्रूट्स बहुत सारे पड़े हुए हैं ना, ये मिक्स्ड फ्रूट्स हैं। इसमें जूसी भी है और नॉन जूसी भी है ना। जूसी फ्रूट्स भी हैं, नॉन जूसी फ्रूट्स है, दोनों है ना। ये मिक्स्ड विट के एग्जांपल है। मिक्स्ड विट इज देयरफॉर अ कंपोजिशन ऑफ पन एंड ट्रू विट and is more or less perfect as the resemblance lies in the ideas or in the words. Resemblance lies in the ideas or in the words. Its foundations are laid partly in falsehood and partly in truth. Reason puts in her claim for one half of it and extravagance for the other amongst it. Right? तो ये definition थी mixed wit की, अब हम आते हैं उनके नेक्स्ट एसे पर, और द नेक्स्ट एसे जो है दैट इज ऑन द प्लेजर ऑफ इमेजिनेशन, राइट. In the pleasure of imagination, on the pleasure of imagination, Joseph Addison wrote how many essays? Joseph Addison wrote 11 papers, starting from 411 to 421. Right? He wrote to clarify its meaning. He does something more. He explains how art and literature make a powerful appeal to the imagination. Right? Literature जो है ना, ये इमेजिनेशन पर अपील करता है. अभी थोड़ी देर हम अब आगे आएंगे रोमांटिक पीरियड पर, देन वी विल सी दैट इमेजिनेशन इज अ क्रिएटिव पावर, जैसा कि सैमुअल टेलर कॉलरिज डिफाइन करते हैं. यहां पर थोड़ा सा मामला अलग है, और यहां पर जो थोड़ा सा मामला अलग है, यहां पर ही एक्सप्लेन्स हाउ आर्ट एंड लिटरेचर मेक अ पावरफुल अपील टू द इमेजिनेशन, बट द मीनिंग दैट ही असाइंस, the meaning he assigns to the term is a limited one. He makes it dependent on the sense of sight. Right? इनके हिसाब से जो pleasure of imagination है वो कहां पर है? Sense of sight पर है. And there are two types of pleasures as he talks about two kinds of pleasure, primary pleasure and secondary pleasure. और इसी पर बाद में primary imagination और secondary imagination है. What is primary pleasure? Primary pleasure of the imagination derived from the direct observation of objects before our eyes. जब हमारे सामने कोई डायरेक्ट चीज होती है ना, किसी चीज को हम देखते हैं, सुंदर सा गार्डन, ब्यूटीफुल गार्डन, right, beautiful flowers, then the pleasure that we derive is called primary pleasure. And when the object is not in front of us, we keep on visualizing. And when we visualize something that is not in front of us, उसको secondary pleasure कहा जाता है. The secondary pleasures of the imagination derive from recollections of objects no longer actually present. जो आपके सामने present नहीं है, and you are being nostalgic, you are revisiting the same thing, right, that is not in front of you, उसको कहते हैं secondary pleasure. And then we come to the next part of his criticism, Joseph Addison's criticism, and that is his essay on tragedy. Right? He doesn't have anything new to talk about tragedy. He believes in the definition given by Aristotle of tragedy. जो उन्होंने दिया है उसी पर वो यहाँ पर भरोसा कर लेते हैं. Aristotle is appealed to be as authoritative theoretician on general principles and references is continually made. Right? बार बार उनका रेफरेंस आता है, जिक्र आता है, बहुत कुछ यहाँ पे नहीं है. हाँ, दो चीजों पर जो उन्होंने फोकस किया है वो कहा है ट्रेजिक हीरो पर. Aristotle also talked about tragic hero कि tragic hero must be from the royal household so that उसका impact जो है larger audience पर हो. And tragedy कैसे होनी चाहिए according to Aristotle, वो पेरिपेशिया और एनाग्रोरिसिस की बात करता है. यहां पर जो है Aristotle said tragedy is the noblest product of mankind since it softens pride and soothes affection, and the tragic hero is a virtuous man struggling with misfortune. And there, जिस पर वो स्ट्रिक्टिकली जिसको मना करते हैं कि there should be no adherence, no intermingling, no mixing of tragedy and comedy in the plays. और कहते हैं कि जो ट्रेजिक कॉमेडी है दैट इज द मोस्ट मॉन्स्ट्रस, आज है मॉन्स्ट्रस थिंग, वो सबसे मॉन्स्ट्रस है, कोई मिक्सिंग वहां पर नहीं होनी चाहिए. There should also be no mixture of the tragic and comic. The tragic comedy, which is the product of English theatre, is one of the most monstrous inventions that ever entered into a poet's thoughts. Most monstrous inventions किसको कहा है? जोसेफ एडिसन ने ये कहा है ट्रेजिक कॉमेडी को. ट्रेजिक कॉमेडी इज वर्थलेस इन द व्यूज, इन द ओपिनियंस ऑफ जोसेफ एडिसन. And then he comes on Paradise Lost. Right? Paradise Lost per he wrote 18 papers. 18 papers he wrote on Paradise Lost, and you can imagine the importance of Paradise. Though Paradise Lost is not criticized, but he appreciates Paradise Lost as Dr. Samuel Johnson did, जैसा उन्होंने किया था वही काम इन्होंने भी यहां पर किया है. Of the 18 chapters, 4 were devoted to an examination of the poem and fable, character, thought and expression. What is fable? Fable is plot. He defines epic on the grounds of the definition given by Aristotle. और अरिस्टोटल के डेफिनेशन में पूरी तरीके से फिट बैठ जाती है मिस्टर मिल्टन की एपिक, और इसलिए मिल्टन इज अप्रिशिएटेड बाय द न्यू क्लासिकल क्रिटिक्स as far as his Paradise Lost is concerned. There are total 18 papers, right? 4 chapters are on fable, character, thought and expression. Of the 4 component parts of an epic mentioned by Aristotle, 2 to censure of the faults under each head. 2 chapters are there where he criticizes John Milton's epic, and then there are 12 papers, each paper on each book of Paradise Lost. The first chapter considers how well Paradise Lost stands up by the classical rules of epic poetry and whether it matches up to the Iliad and the Aeneid in this respect. Addition starts with the fable itself. The action should be unified, complete and great. Judged by these criteria, Paradise Lost can be praised for its structure, it can be praised for its coherence, it can be praised above all for an unquestionable magnificence. I quote here, unquestionable magnificence for in excess of anything that could have emerged from any pagan system. The second paper of that is written on Paradise Lost, second paper examines the characters, actors. Addison has high praise for the sheer variety of characterization. Milton did the maximum that was possible given the subject and its restrictions to human feelings. two human beings, और 2 human beings कौन से हैं? Man and woman, right? We see man and woman in the highest innocence and perfection. Right? Paper number 3 considers the sentiments of Paradise Lost. Milton's chief talent and indeed his distinguishing excellence lies in the sublimity of his thought. The third paper considers the sentiments of Paradise Lost, and Milton's chief talent and indeed his distinguishing excellence lies in the sublimity of his thoughts. Anything in a heroic poem which detracts from naturalness or sublimity is to be accounted a defeat. Anything which leads to mirth can offend this respect, and Addison protests against the unloading of comic puns and quibbles by the fallen angels after their successful use of artillery on the second day of the battle in book number 6. The fourth paper specifies perspicuity and sublimity as the prerequisite of the epic style, and the fifth paper is devoted to the qualifications of a critic who must be well read, a clear and logical thinker, and a master of his native tongue. The true critic ought to dwell rather upon excellencies than imperfection. A critic is not one who always tries to pick holes, but a critic is one who focuses on excellencies rather than imperfection. This is the definition of a critic. This is the function of a critic according to Joseph Addison. Right, the purpose of a critic is to discover the concealed beauties of the writer and communicate to the world such things as are worth their observations. एक क्रिटिक को कौन होना चाहिए? एक क्रिटिक को ब्यूटीज को सर्च करना चाहिए, उसकी एक्सीलेंसीज को सर्च करना चाहिए, उसकी imperfections को सर्च नहीं करना चाहिए. And beauty and excellence should be presented to the world rather than imperfections, rather than demerits. ये क्रिटिक की क्वालिटी होनी चाहिए, ऐसा लगता है जोसेफ एडिसन को. right? And finally one article is there, article number 40, right? Or article number 40 पर he criticizes the popular concept of the time, poetic justice. Poetic justice was the term coined by Thomas Rhymer, and Thomas Rhymer ने उस poetic justice को किस लिए coin किया था? Coin किया था कि good should be rewarded and evil should be punished. Equal treatment मिलना चाहिए according to the function, और on this ground Shakespeare's King Lear was highly criticized कि Cordelia was punished without any cause. Shakespeare didn't follow the formula of poetic justice in his play The King Lear, and Joseph Addison says that it is total ridiculous, total ludicrous to follow the concept of poetic justice, right? Modern doctrine that there must be an equal distribution of rewards and punishments in tragedy. तो क्या कहते हैं कि life is not like that, good and evil will happen alike to all men. सबके साथ ऐसा होता है. तो मतलब क्या है कि जोसेफ एडिशन was not in favor of poetic justice as well, right? तो ये था पूरा जोसेफ एडिशन का क्रिटिसिज्म. बट इतने पे तो खत्म नहीं होगा. शेक्सपियर के बिना तो कोई खत्म ही नहीं हो सकता. जॉनसन ने क्या कहा एडिशन के बारे में, ये तो चलिए छोड़िए. जॉनसन ने एडिशन के जो एक लास्ट स्टेटमेंट है वो देखिएगा. जो जॉनसन बाद में आते हैं एडिशन के, और जॉनसन ने एडिशन की बायोग्राफी लिखी थी. वन ऑफ द 52 बायोग्राफीज में एडिशन की भी बायोग्राफी है, और कहते हैं इफ यू वांट टू मास्टर इंग्लिश देन यू शुड रीड जोसेफ एडिशंस पेपर्स. उनके पेपर्स पढ़ने चाहिए आपको. ये उनकी फिलॉसफी है, ये उनका प्रिसेप्ट है, ये उनका किसका कहना है? ये कहना है जॉनसन का. Whoever wishes to attain an English style, जिसको भी अंग्रेजी की स्टाइल मास्टर करनी है. Whoever wishes to attain an English style, familiar but not coarse, elegant but not ostentatious, must give his days and nights to the volumes of edition. उसे एडिशन को पढ़ना चाहिए. This is the essence, this is the entire essence of the passage that he wrote about Joseph Addison. You will get these notes through my Telegram channel. You can join Telegram channel for the notes, for the questions and for the queries as well, right? और Telegram channel भी same नाम से है जिस नाम से आपका ये YouTube channel है, The New Lyceum. रूल्स फॉलो किया जाए कि रूल्स फॉलो ना किया जाए, दिस इज अ यूनिवर्सल क्वेश्चन फॉर ऑल द न्यू क्लासिकल क्रिटिक्स, all the neoclassical writers, whether we should strictly adhere to the rules, to the precepts given by the classical writers, or we should change the rules according to the convenience. And Joseph Addison is of the view that there should be no rule at all. Rule keeps on changing from time to time. The rule that Aristotle has made 2500 years ago were true in his time. Our time is totally different. How can the world keep on going on that rule? उस रूल पर कैसे चल सकता है? And then he gives the example of William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare was not the follower of any rule, और किसी को फॉलो नहीं किया. और उन्होंने and William Shakespeare is the world known writer. तो जो वर्ल्ड नोन राइटर इसलिए क्योंकि वो किसी फार्मूले को नहीं जानता था, तो हमको भी किसी भी फार्मूला को फॉलो नहीं करना चाहिए. देयर इज मोर ब्यूटी इन द वर्क्स ऑफ ग्रेट जीनियस who is ignorant of the rules of art than in those of little genius who knows and observes them. जो फार्मूला को जानता है, जो उसको ऑब्जर्व करता है, उससे फार बेटर होता है वो जिसको रूल्स नहीं पता है. आवर इनइमिटेबल शेक्सपियर, एक क्वेश्चन मिल गया ना कि हु कॉल्ड शेक्सपियर इनइमिटेबल शेक्सपियर, जिसको कॉपी ही नहीं किया जा सकता. आंसर इज जोसेफ एडिशन. आवर इनइमिटेबल शेक्सपियर इज अ स्टम्बलिंग ब्लॉक टू द होल tribe of these rigid critics. Who would not rather read one of his plays where there is not a single rule of the stage observed than any production of a modern critic where there is not one of them violated? आप शेक्सपियर को पढ़िए जहां पर एक भी फार्मूला फॉलो नहीं किया गया है, और फिर उसके बाद आप उनको पढ़िए जिन्होंने सारे फार्मूले फॉलो किए हैं। आप देखिएगा कौन उसमें बेटर निकल करके आता है और कौन निकल करके आएगा बेटो, यू नो द आंसर। और इसलिए जोसेफ एडिसन को आंसर देने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है। देन रूल्स वर्सेस अनरूल में ही प्रेफर्स अनरूल नॉट अनरूली पर्सन, राइट। अनरूल को प्रेफर करना मींस वन हु इज इग्नोरेंट ऑफ द रूल्स is a better craftsman, is the better writer, is the better playwright in comparison to those who is skilled and who observe all these rules. ऑलराइट, देखिए डक है एक, रूल को जानता है कि कितने पानी में तैरना है तो हमेशा ऊपर होता है, और एक फिश है किसी भी रूल को फॉलो नहीं करती, सो फिश कैन गो डीप इनटू द वाटर, कहीं पर भी चली जाइए, और इसकी अपनी लिमिट है। रूल्स जो जानते हैं उनकी लिमिट है, और जो रूल्स नहीं जानते उनकी कोई लिमिट नहीं है। ऑलराइट, तो ये था पूरी कहानी जोसेफ एडिसन की। अब न्यू क्लासिकल राइटर में एक हम दूसरे पर आते हैं, छोटी सी स्टोरी पर आते हैं, और वो है एक और सटारिस्ट की ऑफ द टाइम और द ग्रेटेस्ट सटारिस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड अभी तक जो जिन्हें मैं जानता हूं, जोनाथन स्विफ्ट की। जोनाथन स्विफ्ट रोट अ टेल, और उस टेल का नाम था द बैटल ऑफ द बुक्स। द बैटल ऑफ द बुक्स वर बिटवीन टू टाइप्स ऑफ बुक्स, एंशिएंट बुक्स एंड क्लासिकल बुक्स, और दूसरा मॉडर्न बुक्स और न्यू बुक्स, एंड विच इज टू बी प्रेफर्ड, किसको प्रेफर किया जाए। तो ये इट इज अ फेबल इन फैक्ट, एंड देयर इज अ फेबल विद इन फेबल। ही कंपेयर द टू टाइप्स ऑफ बुक्स, एक फेबल के थ्रू, एक फेबल में क्या है, एक है बी और दूसरा है स्पाइडर। द स्पाइडर एंड द बी, ये फेबल है। स्पाइडर जो है वो होता है क्लासिकल बुक की मॉडर्न बुक, मॉडर्न बुक, और बी जो है इट रिप्रेजेंट्स द classical books, and classical books are preferable, right. Jonathan Swift was working with a person, और उस पर्सन का नाम था विलियम टेम्पल, एंड एक बैटल जो है ये द बैटल ऑफ द बुक, इट वाज फॉट इन अ लाइब्रेरी, एंड व्हाट वाज द नेम ऑफ द लाइब्रेरी वेयर द बैटल ऑफ द बुक्स टुक प्लेस, ये आपको सर्च करना है, ये आपके लिए क्वेश्चन है। तो वहां पर अ फाइट इमर्ज बिटवीन टू टाइप्स ऑफ रीडर्स, एक ग्रुप वो था जो क्लासिकल रीडर का ग्रुप है, और एक वो जो मॉडर्न रीडर का ग्रुप है। एंड विलियम टेम्पल वाज बेसिकली अ क्लासिसिस्ट, ही वाज इन फेवर ऑफ एंशिएंट बुक्स, सो जोनाथन स्विफ्ट हैड टू एडवोकेट, राइट, ही वाज कंपेल्ड टू राइट अबाउट द supremacy of the classical books. All right, Swift's sympathies were with his former patron Sir William Temple, whose comrades in arms are Homer, यूक्लिड, प्लाटो, अरिस्टोटल, हेरोडोटस, ये उसके कॉमरेड्स थे इन हैंड जिसको पढ़ता था। मोमोस, द पैट्रन ऑफ मॉडर्न्स, flies of the reason of malignant deity called criticism. She sits on her den, devouring volumes. So, two questions from here. Who was William Temple? This question has once been asked in UGC. And second question, who was the patron of modern literature in the Battle of Books? And उसका नाम था मोमोस, राइट। ये इसका जो कॉमरेड बताता है विलियम टेम्पल का, who were William Temple's comrades? तो they were the classical ancient writers. And who were the comrades of Momus? तो they were malignant deity, और उस malignant deities को criticism कहा जाता है। She sits in her den devouring volumes. This is the battle of the books. Who is the critic? Just see the image. That is criticism. Who is here on the screen? At her right hand sat ignorance. Here he is personifying. Right hand, ignorance. Her father and her husband blind with age. Father and husband blind हो चुके हैं एज से. At her left sits pride. Pride is her mother. dressing her up in the scraps of paper herself had torn. और वो मदर कैसी है, अपने आप को पेपर में ड्रेस कर लिया है और वो पेपर खुद ही फाड़ा है. अबाउट हर प्लेड हर चिल्ड्रेन. उसके बच्चे कौन है? नॉइज एंड इम्प्यूडेंस. राइट. तो criticism is considered as a woman. Her right hand sat ignorance. Ignorance is her father and husband, blind with age. On the left side there is pride. Pride is her mother, and mother is scrapped. Mother is addressed in scrapped papers, and then her children are noise and impudence, dullness and vanity, positiveness, pedantry, and ill manners. These are her children. Right? Noise and impudence, dullness and vanity, positiveness, pedantry, and ill manners. The goddess herself had claws like a cat. Who is the goddess here? Goddess is not this cat. The goddess is criticism. The goddess herself had claws like a cat. Her head and ears and voice resembled those of an ass. उसके सिर, उसका कान, उसकी आवाज गधे की तरह होती है. Her teeth fallen out before, her eyes turned inward as if she looked only upon herself. This is the definition of criticism. This is the personified version of criticism. कितना interesting है कि who is more intelligent, a writer or a critic? So obvious answer is क्या है? Obvious answer is critic ना, कि creator for the time being. अभी आप आगे बढ़ोगे तो critic will be more powerful than a creative writer. It is I who have deposed wit and knowledge from their empire over poetry and advanced myself in their stead. ये मैं हूं. Who is I? It is I. I means criticism. I have deposed wit and knowledge from their empire. राइट. डिपोज कर दिया है विट और नॉलेज को उसके एम्पायर से, पोएट्री से, और एडवांस्ड माई सेल्फ इन दियर स्टेट, एंड आई हैव रिप्लेस्ड नॉलेज, आई हैव रिप्लेस्ड विट, एंड आई एम क्रिटिसिज्म. दैट इज क्रिटिसिज्म. ऑलराइट. ये किसकी डेफिनेशन है? ये खोजिएगा, जिन खोजा तिन पाइया. ये स्पाइडर एंड बी है. Spider represents the moderns and a bee represents the ancients. बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है. स्पाइडर रिप्रेजेंट्स मॉडर्न. स्पाइडर किसके लिए जाना जाता है? स्पाइडर फीड्स ऑन वर्मिन. स्पाइडर फीड्स ऑन germs. Spider feeds on insects. Spider is found in dust. And bees are found on flowers. Bees are found in the lap of nature. Bees are found next to originality. And obviously answer ये है कि if a spider represents modern and a bee represents the ancient, who is superior? Right? Obvious answer है the superior is bee. Let's see the picture. The spider किस पर जिंदा रहता है? ये मॉडर्न लिटरेचर है. राइट? ये मॉडर्न लिटरेचर है. ये मेरा मानना नहीं है, ये जोनाथन स्विफ्ट का है. And then this is the classical literature. See another picture, and this picture is a bee. Right? Depends on flower and nature. Depends on flower and nature. So obviously Jonathan Swift is in favor of the classical writers. Classical writers are compared with bees. All right. One more writer, one more poet is very significant in the neoclassical period, and his name was Alexander Pope. Though he wrote the an essay on criticism, but there is nothing new. It is merely the paraphrasing of Aristotle, Horace, Longinus. All the critics of the classical times were paraphrased by Alexander Pope, so I am not going to discuss him here as a critic. Right? He once edited the Shakespeare's plays under the title the works of Shakespeare in 1725, and it had a lot of incongruities, a lot of errors. So in the following year, in 1726, जो है another writer, a better scholar of William Shakespeare, re-edited Shakespeare's plays under the title Theatres Shakespeare Restored, and his name was, who wrote Shakespeare Restored? Another question for you, right? And re-edit किया, और result ये हुआ कि he became the target of Alexander Pope in his next poem, और next poem थी The Dunciad. Louis Theobald was the name of the editor who edited Shakespeare's plays after Alexander Pope, and the name of the book was Shakespeare Restored. All right, so in the preface to the works of Shakespeare, you see here works of Shakespeare, you can see the image of Shakespeare, and it says a lot. Even in fact, these says a lot. These are the different versions of William Shakespeare. The poetry of Shakespeare was inspiration indeed. He is not so much as imitator as an instrument of nature, and it is not so just to say that he speaks from her as that she speaks through him. It is like an ancient majestic piece of Gothic architecture compared with the neat modern building. ये शेक्सपियर के प्लेस के बारे में स्टेटमेंट था आज अलेक्जेंडर पोप का, कि शेक्सपियर प्लेस कैसे हैं, एंसेंट मैजेस्टिक पीस ऑफ गोथिक आर्किटेक्चर. ये अलेक्जेंडर पोप का स्टेटमेंट था. एंड टुडेज क्लास कंक्लूड्स हियर. आई होप यू वुड हैव एंजॉयड अ लॉट. बहुत मजा आया होगा. एंड अगर आप वीडियोस को देखते रहे लगातार ना, आपकी एक तो क्रिटिसिज्म बहुत इंप्रूव हो जाएगा, रिच हो जाएगा. दूसरा, यू विल गेट योर डिजायर्ड रिजल्ट. If you are preparing for UGC NET, if you are preparing for assistant professor examination conducted by Uttar Pradesh Higher Education Commission, or assistant professor examination that will be conducted by Haryana Public Service Commission, Himachal Pradesh Public Service Commission, Rajasthan Public Service Commission, Bihar Public Service Commission. अगर if you are preparing for CUET MA entrance की अगर आप preparation कर रहे हैं, then these lectures are very much useful for you. You will definitely will be benefited from these lectures. So this is my advice, being a teacher, this is my suggestion to you, that please watch these videos many times so that you could get the benefit, right? पूरा benefit आपको मिले. और it is my request, it is my suggestion कि please share the videos with other students as well, so that they could also enjoy the video, they could also get the opportunity to enrich themselves. Thank you so much. जल्दी मिलते हैं. And the next critic will be William Wordsworth. I'll be talking on Wordsworth and his theory of poetry. All right. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Jai Hind. Jai Bharat.